Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. George Soros, the Democratic Party, and Hillary Clinton. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. As you may know, the 85-year-old billionaire is a far-left fanatic whose open society organization advocates no borders anywhere in the world. According to Soros, everyone should be able to go wherever they want for any reason and stay there. Recently, hackers believed to be backed by Russia exposed more than 2,000 documents connected to Soros and his open society. The information very disturbing. Soros has given about $10 million to groups opposed to the policies of Israel. He has funded individuals accusing Israel of war crimes. He has given a variety of grants to people who literally hate the Jewish state of Israel. In addition, Soros has funded investigations of individuals here in the USA who are opposed to radical Islam. People like Pamela Geller, Frank Gaffney, Liz Cheney, and Cliff May. Mr. May will be here in just a few moments. Finally, George Soros has donated about $13 million to the Democrats this election cycle. That includes $7 million to a Hillary Clinton super PAC. 12 years ago, here's what Mrs. Clinton said about George Soros.
We have been given an extraordinary blessing, and at this moment in time, our country needs us.
Now, to be fair, that soundbite is dated, but the Clinton campaign is accepting money from Soros this year, as stated, and that may present a problem for the secretary. You may remember that Donald Trump got hammered by the media for not disavowing David Duke quickly enough. Duke, of course, a far-right hater. But now we have a far-left individual, Soros, bent on harming Israel, America's strongest ally in the Middle East. So how will the media cover that? Again, Soros, one of the biggest donors to the Democratic Party. Talking Points believes the mainstream press will largely ignore the Soros story, even though it's very important. Does the Democratic Party advocate open borders worldwide, a situation that would make it easy for Islamic terrorists to kill at will anywhere? Does the Democratic Party support the enemies of Israel? Do Jewish voters even know what's happening? Again, a major situation brought to you by Russian hackers and presented to a largely apathetic press when it comes to reporting the truth about the upcoming election. Summing up, the Democratic Party must comment on George Soros and his activities. We've requested a statement from the DNC, and we will let you know tomorrow if they reply. And that's a memo. Now for the top story reaction. Joining us from Washington is the aforementioned Cliff May, president of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. First of all, do you know anything more about Soros and his crew stalking you or whatever they're doing?
Well, it wasn't news that we were being trolled, targeted for delegitimization and defamation. And as you know, Bill, I run a think tank, a policy institute formed after 9/11 that focuses on national security. That means we focus largely on jihadism, Islamism, radical Islam, call it what you will. We knew there were these various individuals on Twitter. They were tweeting against us. They were publishing articles, mostly in left-wing journals, about us, trying to dig up dirt on us. What we didn't know until last weekend was that George Soros was giving them hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to do this. That came as a surprise.
All right, so they're paid assassins to try to get you and the other people we mentioned. Now, I don't understand why Soros would single you out when your organization is basically exposing a major threat to the United States and the world, Islamic jihad. That's what you do. So why would Soros want to muzzle you or hurt you?
You know, this was worse 5 years ago than it is now, but it's not over. There are a lot of those who think, look, this is violent extremism. It has no relationship whatsoever to Islam. You can't even talk about that. If you say, look, not that we have a problem with Islam, but I would say we have a problem with movements within Islam, then you must be an Islamophobe. And I don't mind if people want to debate me, argue with me. People come on your show and debate. It's very edifying. It's very entertaining. But what they want to do when they call you an Islamophobe is they want to shut you down. They want to get you out of the debate.
It's like a homophobe or a bigot, a racist and all that. But why does he want to shut you down? Is George Soros loony enough to think that an open border world, a borderless world, where ISIS could move wherever they want with any problem, is a safe world, is a good thing? Is he that crazy?
Apparently, there's even evidence to show that he looks upon the refugee crisis in Europe, and it's a terrible crisis, as an opportunity for him to further his ideas and his policies. And as you pointed out, in a Middle East that is melting down, where you have genocide taking place among Christian, Yazidi, and other communities, what he's doing is targeting the one open society in the whole region, and that's Israel. And it's particularly ironic that as he's pursuing what is a kind of McCarthyism, he is the founder of the Open Societies Foundation. How does an open society foundation try to shut down debate, try to demonize and delegitimize Israel, and try to do all the kinds of things it's doing, like taking advantage of the refugee crisis?
I think it's safe to say that by taking $13 million from George Soros, the Democratic Party has some explaining to do. Do they not?
Look, imagine if the Koch brothers, I don't know them, and that if they tried to demonize groups on the right, groups on the left, because they were too soft on the Muslim Brotherhood. This would be a big story, it seems to me, in the liberal press. Why isn't it, as you suggest, why isn't this a story, except in conservative media, that you have George Soros pursuing these things? And yes, it is something that should be considered, since he is a huge supporter of all these left-wing causes, and yes, of Democrats.
Well, he's the second biggest donor, I believe, at this point for the Democratic Party this election cycle. Yet, as you pointed out, and we're not a conservative show, as you know, Mr. May. I mean, this is a really interesting story. I mean, how an American billionaire can pay people hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to attack you and other people who object to Islamic terrorism. I mean, that's the crux of the story. And then that very same person involved in that and delegitimizing Israel is one of the biggest funders of the Democratic Party. That's huge. That's a huge story. That would be like the Klan coming up with money and pumping it into the Republican Party. I mean, think about it. The Klan, a racist crew, all right, who wants to put Jews and blacks and minorities in a bad position, okay? And it's horrifying what they do, all right? As opposed to Soros, a far left crank who wants to harm Israel and wants to shut you up. I mean, I don't understand the big difference between Soros and David Duke. Do you?
I don't, and I think that members of the more liberal and more progressive press ought to be answering why this isn't newsworthy, why only certain things are newsworthy, and why somebody far to the left and further to the left than they are, why they won't investigate, report, cover, and talk about these things.
Where is this?
And where is it? I don't think you're going to see it in tomorrow's papers.
Now, to be fair, we looked for connections between Soros and President Obama. We did not find any. In fact, the two had a falling out of some kind. But Hillary Clinton, you know, she's $7 million already into her campaign from Soros. So, again, we need to get to the bottom of this. And, Mr. Mayor, we appreciate you coming on this evening.
Glad.
Next on the rundown, a Democrat will reply to our investigation. Then later, President Obama orders more accused terrorists released from Guantanamo Bay, some of them very dangerous. Also, Black Lives Matter demonstrating at Graceland, home of Elvis Presley. Why? Those reports after these messages. Continue now with our lead story. Radical leftist George Soros donating $13 million to the Democratic Party so far is exposed by Russian hackers. Here now in New York City, Dr. Jeannie Zaino, who teaches political science at Iona College. As a Democrat, how do you react to what we just told the folks?
You know, I mean, look, George Soros is a billionaire philanthropist. He has raised an awful lot of money for democratic causes, causes that people on the left care about. He has donated money, you know, and you look at all the people who have raised money who haven't donated, all the billionaires who aren't giving, and you have to give him credit for that. And then I think you look at the hacking and you see some of the things coming out and it makes people uncomfortable. But I'm not sure you can blame George Soros or Hillary Clinton for the fact that we live in a political system that allows money to be spent in this way.
You're deflecting the issue. So what you're saying is Mussolini made the Italian trains run on time, so you have to give him credit, even though he was a fascist pig.
I am half Italian, so I'm not going to respond to that.
But that argument doesn't hold weight, because what we're dealing with now is we're dealing with a man who we now know provided hundreds of thousands of dollars to discredit Americans like Cliff May and Liz Cheney, who were simply trying to protect the country against Islamic terrorism, number one. Number two, is donated millions of dollars to try to run down Israel. All right. So now, how, as a Democrat, do you process those two facts?
You know, look, if you look at the foundation, it is $13 billion in 33 years. That is an awful lot of money. It has gone an awful lot of places. When you're dealing with that amount of money, yes, it's going to go places that make certain people uncomfortable.
But this is a Soros-directed. This is his philosophy.
Absolutely.
Now, the Democratic Party is accepting his money.
Absolutely.
Right?
As the Republican Party would as well.
Let's keep it with the Democrats, Doctor, with all due respect. All right? They're accepting the money. Do they have an obligation to explain whether they support Soros' vision of open borders everywhere in the United States, his vision of denigrating Israel? To the Democratic Party, does the Democratic Party, Donna Brazile as the head, have an obligation to explain that to you, a Democrat?
I think they absolutely have to be transparent about where that money is coming from and what it is directed to. I absolutely agree with that.
But we know where it's coming from and where it was directed to. Do they have to explain why they're accepting it?
I don't think the argument that the Democratic Party is anti-Israel is going to hold any water. So, I do believe in transparency. If they are accepting money, which they are, they need to say where it's coming from and where it's going. And if you want that money regulated, it would be incumbent on all of us to get together, which I firmly believe, and regulate that money.
Well, look, that's a whole different debate.
But it's not a whole different debate.
Yes, it is, because this
if it's not regulated, how do you control
this investigation is very personal. It's not a policy investigation. Here's a man giving an enormous amount of money to the Democrats, who believes that we should not protect ourselves at all and allow anyone in the world in here at any time. That's flat out dangerous. And as a man who's funding anti-Israel people to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. That's personal. And I'm surprised as a Democrat that you don't take it personally.
I do take it.
It puts you, your family, and every Jew in Israel in danger.
I do take it personally. But here is also a man who has funded women's issues, equal
All right, we're
rights,
back to the
criminal
trains
justice.
on time again.
But listen, there is a point to be made. If that money is not going in a place that the Democratic Party is comfortable with, then yes, it should be discussed by Democrats. But that is not all the money, and that's not where all the money is going to.
Nobody is saying it's all the money. You can give money to poor children and still be a villain. And still be a villain.
Absolutely, but I don't think that George Soros qualifies as a villain.
You don't?
No, and I would like to see the evidence that suggests that he does. You show me that evidence.
You just heard Cliff May, an American citizen.
And I respect Cliff.
Who he's trying to destroy because of his free speech opinion that the jihadists are bad for America.
I am not in favor
That's not a bad thing?
I am not in favor of destroying Cliff May or anybody
else. Well, that's what Soros is doing.
But this is not what the Democrats are responsible for. What are they responsible for? If they are getting donations, they're responsible for being transparent about where they're coming from and what they're
targeted to. And explaining why they're accepting them.
And where the money is going, Bill. Where is the money going? It is not going to discredit Cliff May.
If this were the opposite, if some guy, some kooky far-right person was giving this kind of money to the Republicans, this would be page one in every newspaper, and CNN would lead with it 24/7.
I would say the same thing. But you know what? In terms of the media, it's after ratings. It's not after that.
All right. Directly ahead, President Obama releasing 15 more accused terrorists from Guantanamo. We'll have the inside story there. And Black Lives Matter, Elvis, and a demonstration. What? Up ahead. Fact and follow-up segment tonight. The U.S. government has released 15 inmates from Guantanamo prison, sending them to the United Arab Emirates. That leaves just 61 detainees at Gitmo right now, which President Obama has promised to close. Joining us from Washington, Fox News strategic analyst Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters. So, first of all, how do these releases work? We learn about them, read the press, after the fact, and then they're not widely reported. So how do they actually work?
Well, there's a formal process, Bill, and then there's the way it really works. The formal process is there's a Guantanamo review task force that Obama established in 2009 that vets them all and says, are these ready for release? That wasn't quick enough. So in 2011, he established a periodic review board, and that still hasn't been quick enough. So he's now basically presidentially ordering it. But there is a formal vetting process that makes no mention of the tremendous power of the White House and the pressure the president's brought upon them. And so President Obama, it's essentially, despite the interagency facade, it's a unilateral process. The president wants them gone. Now, we also make a great ballyhoo about vetting the countries that are getting them. They've sent them to Saudi Arabia, to Gulf states, to Uruguay. But really, there's not a serious follow-up thereafter. And so up to a third of them have gone back to the battlefield.
Now, is that a fact? Up a third of those released from Guantanamo Bay have gone back to fight against the USA. Can you back that up and source it for us?
Well, the government admits, I think it's 17.4% are confirmed as having gone back to jihad. Another almost 13% are suspected of possibly having gone back, which tells me they've gone back. But even if it was only one who was released and blew up a busload of school children or an American Army vehicle on convoy, even if it's only one, it matters. And Guantanamo, whether or not you think it was a great idea, you need some place to hold these people. When we took all of them prisoner, we had not thought it through. And the Bush administration made two mistakes. The first one was capturing all these guys, many of whom were worthless. They should have been killed on the battlefield. And the second mistake was when the global left and media turned Guantanamo into this house of horrors, the Bush administration didn't fight back.
No, I know. I've been down there twice. It's not a house of horrors. But I will say this. In our society, it is not just to keep someone in detention without a trial. And the military has not been able to set up a tribunal system to try these people. So therefore, you give the left and the sympathizers of, not the sympathizers of the jihadists, but the sympathizers of people who say you can't just keep them forever. You give them a huge cannon because they haven't been adjudicated properly. They can be under military law, and they haven't been. So that's a legitimate criticism of the Guantanamo system, is it not?
Yeah, and it has happened because even under Bush and Cheney, the military justice system had become so politically correct that it wasn't possible to try them the way we needed to, the way we tried saboteurs or terrorists in World War II. And so, I mean, you and I do have a divergence on this issue, Bill. I don't think known terrorists have any rights, legal or human or otherwise.
Then we have to define that, Colonel. Because now we live in a country that has a legal system, all right? So if you believe, and the majority of Americans believe, that if we capture a terrorist and the evidence against the terrorist is overwhelming, they should be incarcerated forever. But some of that evidence has to be made public. You just can't snatch people up and throw them in a dungeon, no matter if it's Guantanamo or anywhere else, forever, because then you look like you're the oppressor. It's got to be some kind of methodical way to go about this, and it hasn't been. And that's the weakness of it. Last word.
Well, the Bush administration actually did try to vet as many as possible, released, I believe, it's 532. So when Obama came to office, what you had left were the hardcore of the hardcore, and now we're down from 241 down to 61, 19 more planned to release. This is about Obama establishing a legacy, foreign policy and security legacy. And I'll tell you, compare legacies. Lincoln freed the slaves. Obama freed the terrorists.
All right. I don't know if that's fair, but it's certainly a powerful point.
It's not fair to Lincoln.
Once again, I think the military should have tried these people. Colonel, thank you. One footnote, the Colonel's new book is called The Damned of Petersburg, a Civil War novel. Pick it up. Plenty more ahead as the factor moves along this evening. Gutfeld and McGurk want to talk about the Joe Biden-Hillary Clinton rally yesterday. That should be interesting. And Donald Trump's contention that the upcoming presidential election may be rigged. Is it legal on a case? We hope you stay tuned for those reports. Impact segment tonight, another demonstration by Black Lives Matter, this one involving the estate of Elvis Presley. As you may know, Mr. Presley died 39 years ago today at the age of 42. His home in Memphis, Tennessee, called Graceland, is a major tourist attraction there. And the city of Memphis has subsidized Graceland to some extent, believing it adds economic value to the area. That is not sitting well with Black Lives Matter.
Please don't shoot me dead. I got my hands above my head. We need city council down here. We need city council. You guys agreed to vote on that $600 million budget that they got a piece of the pie of. And they're racial profiling us. We can't even go see Elvis.
All right, a list of grievances, very, very long. With us here in New York City, Lisa Booth and Juan Williams. So, Juan, Elvis? I mean, come on, you know.
It sounds ludicrous, doesn't it? But
yes,
you know,
it does.
Right,
Juan.
but you would appreciate that, of course, in this country, people use any kind of platform to get attention for their issues.
I don't.
Oh, I think celebrities have gone to the Super Bowl. We saw Beyonce do that. We've seen people. Westboro Baptist went to a funeral to demonstrate against
evil.
gays in the military.
Westboro Baptist is
or
evil.
you've seen, of course, in our history, you're well familiar with that. The Boston Tea Party. People were, in fact, interfering with commerce to make it clear they were opposed to taxes.
I just want to get this straight. Juan Williams is now, everyone, comparing the Boston Tea Party.
Yes, I
during the
certainly
Revolutionary
am. You're
War
guilty.
to these
Guilty.
people protesting outside of Elvis's house.
Yes, there
And you say?
And then also somewhere along the way, I went to Westboro Baptist. So
Yeah.
in this,
I don't mind
in
the
this stream of
It's a right
consciousness.
to people use platforms wherever they can get them, Lisa.
Well,
What do you think?
I mean, that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to draw attention. But look, this is
Attention to what?
That's a good question. I don't know. They
Attention
put
to
out
what?
they
That they
put out
don't
a
get-
list of ludicrous demands. I think it's time for the movement to get shut down. I think they're doing a disservice to the African American community and legitimate concerns that are there by driving fictitious narratives and also focusing on events that does a disservice to their cause. You look at what's happening in Milwaukee right now. There's an African American gentleman who was killed, who was part of a shooting last year. There's also intimidation of a witness that was involved as well, who pointed a gun at an African American
Black Lives
police
Matter
officer.
hasn't surfaced in Milwaukee.
But the African American police officer shot him because he was pointing a gun. But now there's riots in Milwaukee. There's burning down of buildings.
You can't pin that on Black Lives Matter. So far, it hasn't been attributed to them. What I'm trying to tell you, and I disagree with you, I don't think we should shut down Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is misguided in the extreme. And here's my point about Graceland, getting back to Elvis. This makes the group hateful to people who like Elvis Presley. You know, Elvis Presley is an icon in this country. Whether you know, I feel sorry for the man more than anything else, but he was a tremendous entertainer. Now that you drag him and his family into this protest, and most Americans, white Americans, are going, what are you doing? What are you doing? That would be like David Duke going in front of Otis Redding's house to try to make some crazy point that he wants to make. It's the same inappropriate venue.
No, it's not. Look, I think
yes, it is.
I think that, look, remember when the Olympic athletes raised their fist in Mexico City?
That was wholly different.
No, people said, don't mix sports with your political agenda. Or when people stand in front of abortion, like, we are opposed to it. A lot of people say we don't like it. Why are you doing that? But I'm telling you, Bill, when people have your strength, the strength of your argument, by the way, and I think you have something to say here with merit, they don't have an agenda. And even President Obama, even people who want to hear from them, most Americans, by the way, it's about half of Americans want.
Not anymore.
They have some legitimate grievance, and they want to hear from Black Lives Matter. But the leadership has been so vacuous.
What is happening here, though, and so everybody knows, is that Black Lives Matter, which does draw attention to an issue that should be discussed, and that is violence against black men.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have no beef discussing that. Have now succeeded in making race relations worse in this country. That white people are angry at this group and that it's legitimized by some, including you. You say?
But that's the point I'm trying to make, is we can all agree that there are legitimate issues here and legitimate concerns of African Americans.
Right.
And those concerns should be discussed. But when it becomes hijacked by people that are burning down businesses, that are using inflammatory language like pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon, when they draw the cause from fictitious roots like the hands up, don't shoot in Ferguson, when forensic evidence proves them wrong, when witness accounts prove them wrong, and when they stem you look at what's going on in Milwaukee as well, when they pick these losing battles, when they point out these cases where the facts are not there to back it up.
Okay, but here's my point to you, Lisa.
Narrative.
Lisa, I appreciate what you're saying, but I think it comes from a strongly conservative point of view, which I think seeks to undermine Black Lives Matter. The Justice Department and others have talked about legitimate racism within the Baltimore police, the Ferguson police. Black Lives Matter is trying to speak to those issues. My problem with them is that they don't have a realistic agenda.
No.
And you know what my big beef with them is? They're not talking about things like black family breakdown. They're not talking about bad schools. They're not marching against the drug dealers
Yes, but
and the teachers' unions that screw up the public schools.
But the concept that somehow it's open season for police officers on the African American community has been disputed and proven wrong by both that Harvard study that most recently came out.
All I'm saying
that is not true. That's not driven in the fact that
that's fine. We're not going to settle that here, but there's a legitimate issue that they're trying to raise. If they would do so with some purpose and the ability to compromise and work with others,
manner,
that's all I'm saying.
Leave Elvis alone.
Wow, my goodness.
Thank you very much. And when we come right back, Donald Trump says the upcoming election may be rigged. We asked is it illegal to investigate that statement. And Gutfeld McGurk on crime and pollution at the Rio Olympics. Moments away. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Bill O'Reilly, and here's a legal segment tonight. You may remember this statement 2 weeks ago.
I'm telling you, November 8th, we better be careful because that election is going to be rigged. And I hope the Republicans are watching closely or it's going to be taken away from us.
Very provocative for Mr. Trump, so we asked, is it legal to look at the presidential election data? Here now, Stacey Schneider in for Lise Wheel and Kimberly Guilfoyle. What'd you find out, Guilfoyle?
Well, I'll tell you, you hear a lot of discussion like you did in the statements from Donald Trump about voter fraud, and people are obviously concerned about it. You have places like True the Vote trying to make sure that there is integrity in the voting process in this country, which there should be. Here's the answer. It's very difficult to catch and prove voter fraud in this country. There's some compelling numbers. For example, in state and federal cases, 784 election cases with a conviction since 1995.
784 with a conviction of voter fraud, some kind of voter shenanigans.
However, only 4 in the last presidential election, according to our brain room.
So in 2012.
Right. So, I mean, you're kind of also relying on people telling on one another or self-reporting or admissions because it's tough to catch.
Or, the state's investigating. Go ahead.
You're also relying on Donald Trump saying it exists, but there are handfuls of cases that Kimberly cited to and that are out there of it happening, and some of them are for local elections, but there is no statistical evidence of systemic voter fraud in presidential elections.
What about the reports like in Philadelphia that nobody voted for Romney, in a pretty big district, there's 0 votes, and then people say that's impossible. Have you guys looked into that?
Well, it's circumstantial evidence to suggest, doesn't it seem improbable that at least one individual would have voted? So it does raise questions of concern, but there weren't any convictions that came out of those inquiries.
I don't even know if there was an investigation.
They file questions and to launch an investigation, but no.
You know what? The districts where that happened were very low Romney turnout districts to begin with, and I know the numbers are certainly low, but Philadelphia is known for this kind of thing happening.
Well, we understand that, but if there's nobody voting in a certain amount of it's like 5,000 people, that's not true. Yeah. But isn't it true that somebody has to file a complaint about a certain election district or a certain polling place, and then they come in and investigate? They have to file a complaint, right?
You have to file a complaint, so that's what I'm saying. You're relying
no big watchdog group.
No, there is no oversight.
And you said, what was the group you cited in the beginning?
True the Vote is a conservative.
The Vote.
A conservative group that is looking to make sure that
they don't dispute the stats that you gave?
No, they don't dispute the stats. They're also looking at further case. They're compiling a larger, broader list to aggregate the numbers. Yes, and also what they're trying to do is have voter ID. That's one of the mission objectives, right?
But that's tied up.
Because there's a lot of disparity in
states. So bottom line on this, summing up, there hasn't been an epidemic of provable cases, but there have been some since 1995.
You know why else is a concern? It's very important because in the recent weeks, federal judges have loosened the requirements for voter ID, for presenting identification in Texas, North Carolina, North Dakota, Wisconsin, and it could impact the election this November is the thought process.
Okay. Now, Bo Bergdahl, this is the longest running case I've ever seen.
Oh, my gosh.
February 6th now is a new trial date for him. A bevy of charges against him, but pretty much that he's a traitor. We all know the case. But now, Stacey, there's an admission by the prosecutor, the general overseeing the prosecution, that he burned some evidence?
It's unbelievable what's come out. So this is from defense lawyers interviewing the general who's overseeing the court-martial.
In a deposition?
Some kind of proceeding pre-trial where they've had a discussion with him, and it's come out that there were 100 letters concerning this case that were somehow mysteriously burned.
Mysteriously burned by whom?
By the general overseeing the trial.
By the general.
Well, so now
the case goes up in smoke, pardon the pun, Guilfoyle.
Yes, all up in smoke. He's the commanding general of U.S. Army Forces Command at Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
He admitted this in an interview on August 8th and said, "Oh, well, I burned him." And he said, "Well, it ranged the range of opinions about what I should do with them."
Were they letters written by Bergdahl himself?
People all sent in to him, to Abrams to say what they thought, their opinion, etc. of the case. But who knows?
But they weren't Bergdahl letters.
Listen,
we don't really know what they were.
We don't know what.
We don't know what witnesses are there.
These were letters about the Bergdahl case that the general had, and he burned them.
And about the disposition, and he said sent to him.
I don't know.
But there is no way to verify. We're taking him for his word that he burned them, and that some were to him, maybe some were to Bergdahl.
So now they're looking. Defense lawyers are looking to vacate this court
foul up, and it's probably a
insane.
better word than foul up, but I can't say it on TV.
Destruction of evidence. It's an appealable issue.
But not just this.
But
the whole thing is just a fiasco.
I mean, what could happen next?
Right.
I never heard of this.
What's going to happen next? The guy's going to walk. All right, February 6th, we'll follow the case. Ladies, thank you. Gutfeld, McGurk on deck. Crime, chaos, and pollution in Rio. Also, Hillary Biden exposition yesterday. That was interesting. The boys are next. Back in the book segment tonight, what the heck just happened yesterday in Scranton, Pennsylvania? Vice President Biden said this.
And what Hillary's all about is making sure that every one of you can look your child and your grandchild in the eye and say, honey, I mean this sincerely, everything's going to be okay. Think how many people you know who don't feel like they can say that right now.
Honey, it's not okay right now. Here now to analyze Bernard McGurk and Greg Gutfeld. So first of all, I object to the word honey.
Yes.
Because I if I talk to the urchins, they don't want to, especially the male urchins who are hormone driven, they don't want to be called honey.
It's heteronormative, it's sexist, it's gender specific. It nauseates me. Look, this kind of, when he's next to Hillary, that doesn't help Hillary because he's such a far more likable person than Hillary. He's the good cop, she's the bad cop. He's the cheeseburger, she's the olive loaf. He's the ice cream, she's the ice cream headache. You know what it is? When Democrats go up, look at them together, they go, what could have been? I mean, Joe Biden is like me at a nudist camp, no baggage. She is saddled with so much baggage, the email scandal, the lies, and they look at him and they go, he would be so much better.
What could have been.
I like watching Biden speak.
Yes.
I have to say this is not sarcastic like Gutfeld was.
No, I'm serious.
I didn't quite understand the news camp remark, but I'm still processing. I like it because you never know what he's going to say. You never know what he's going to say. He's pointing to everybody going,
true.
You and you and you. And I'm going, what do you want? My wallet? What are you going to do now? What's going to happen? And I like that sense. It's almost Trump-esque. All right? You don't know what's going to come out of his mouth. My question to you is, does this help Hillary Clinton?
Of course, I think it helps her a lot. But I think what he said was a bunch of malarkey, to use his word cube. Because as Greg said, he's loved, he's charismatic, he's squeaky clean, and she's boss tweed in a pantsuit. Speaking of Trump, he probably wanted to say, Trump loves Stalin, Hillary loves stealing. But he had to sort of contain himself.
Couldn't do that.
No,
Okay.
I mean,
But I don't know how it helps Hillary, because the people who would go to a rally like that, obviously, I don't know how many people are going to be persuaded. All right. Rio. Been there a number of times. I do not recommend you go at this point. It is chaotic and dangerous. And the Olympics, they were supposed to clean it up. This is supposed to be Brazil's message to the world. Roll the tape.
Ryan Lochte, who is one of the most medaled Olympians, 12 overall, has been robbed at gunpoint.
The Olympic diving pool has turned green, and nobody seems to know why.
The dirty water at the Olympic Games may have actually cost one athlete her shot at winning gold.
Journalists covering the Olympics in Rio had a close call on Tuesday night when they say their bus came under fire.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just another day in Rio. The bus under fire. No, I solved the pool mystery.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Some kid snuck and dumped silly putty in there, and that was it. And then the thing turned green.
You know it's bad when the North Koreans want to go home. I mean, that's not a good sign.
But there's food there. Why do they want to?
Anybody that can lives on a ship off the coast, so they can watch the body parts float by, I guess. But they actually are sending people home with dysentery. For God, that's like a 19th century disease.
When I was down there, I stayed about 15 miles outside of town because the ocean was actually not polluted like that there. But it was a tough place.
But you know what's interesting? You got to look at the positives. They've created a lot of new events. There's now synchronized diarrhea. We have slalom food poisoning, and we have track and mugging. So these are all really going to be interesting.
That would help the times of the track runners.
That's true.
If you had 5 guys with machetes behind you.
Yeah, but you got to salute these athletes because they have to concentrate on winning while dealing with all these other distractions.
Yeah.
It's got to be hard for these people.
Yeah, like they're getting shot at.
Yeah, you got to tip your hat to these last
When they check out of the hotels, they run like Usain Bolt to the taxis to get to the airport, for God's sakes. And the athletes that win, that's the upside. The downside is they have to talk to Matt Lauer afterwards.
Come on.
It's a lose-lose situation.
Lauer's a good guy. But I say, if you win a gold medal, they're going to rob it from you.
That's right.
I mean, they know who you are. So it's not a good thing down there in Rio. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Factor tip of the day, preparing for the end of summer. Ooh, how to make it less painful. The tip, moments away. Factor tip today, how to get the most out of the last few weeks of summer. But first, one thing that will make September more tolerable is the release of the new Killing book. Killing the Rising Sun will be everywhere, and I believe you will like it, written in the style of Killing Patton. We gave an advance copy to General David Petraeus. He was kind enough to give us a terrific review. It's on the book jacket. Anyway, if you pre-order Killing the Rising Sun on BillO'Reilly.com, you get it first. If you become a BillO'Reilly.com premium member, you'll get it free. Now the mail. Armin Savadigian, Varna, Bulgaria. Mr. O, in your talking points you mentioned how Donald Trump criticized Mrs. Khan, a Gold Star mom. But I seem to recall that Mr. Khan attacked Mr. Trump. Can you please explain and be fair? Always fair here, Armand. We try to be anyway. Mr. Khan is angry about Donald Trump's Muslim immigration policy. So he hooked up with the Democratic Party and appeared at its convention to mock Trump. In reply, the candidate mentioned that Mrs. Khan stood mute and then implied that might be because she's a Muslim woman. That's what caused the controversy. Mr. Khan, fair game. Right? He entered the political arena. But the mother, who didn't say anything, should not be subject to scrutiny. Simon Miller, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. What I love about the Factor is that everyone gets a fair shake. Well, thank you for noticing, Simon. In this age of savage personal attacks by the media and allegations that instantly become convictions, we try to maintain a fact-based approach to analysis while at the same time telling you what we believe and why we believe it. We're not in the business of smearing or spewing propaganda, which I think has served us well. Charles Salemi, Largo, Florida. I'm confused, Bill. How can mid-August polling be meaningless, yet you say Hillary Clinton is clearly ahead? Because she's clearly ahead, Charles. But that can change. That was the point. As Election Day grows closer, the surveys will become more exact. Bob Munson, Newbury Park, California. Charles Krauthammer has never been to an inner-city school. Socioeconomic facts determine 99% of academic success. The most dedicated teachers are inner-city teachers. No quibble with your teacher comment, Bob. I taught in the ghetto, but I taught at a Catholic school that delivered far more discipline and academic rigor than the local public school. Charles advocates school vouchers for poor kids so they might select private schools, and he's right. Jordan Nadell, Denver. You can go wrong in Ireland, Bill. Ever been to Belfast? I have, Jordan. But it's getting better. And a salute to Jean and Joe King, Kendallville, Indiana, married for 76 years this month. Way to go, guys. And finally, tonight, the Factor tip of the day. 3 more weeks of summer. The urchins are panicking. Many of us who are enjoying some time off will have to begin working hard once again. So how do we handle this foreboding situation? Ignore it. Don't think about it. Don't even buy any fall clothes. You get them on sale after Labor Day. All right? You got to get the urchins some pens or something, but don't think about the end of summer. Just savor every vacation day, jump in the ocean, hike a mountain, sit there and watch The Factor. Nothing you can do about change of seasons, and when there's nothing you can do, accept it. and find something fun to do. Back to tip of the day. And that is it for us tonight. Please check out the Fox News Factor website, differentfrombillO'Reilly.com. Also, please spout off about the Factor from anywhere in the world. O'Reilly at FoxNews.com. O'Reilly at FoxNews.com. Name and town if you wish to opine. Word of the day, do not be a blatherskite. Writing to the Factor. Tomorrow, Beck will be here. Now, Beck says that Donald Trump's speaking has a lot in common with Black Lives Matter. Now, that's pretty provocative. So Beck and I will kick it around, as they say, in the schoolyard. Again, thanks for watching us tonight. I am Bill O'Reilly. Please always remember that the spin stops right here, because we are definitely looking out for you.